So without further ado, while we still continue to work on our overhead, I would like to introduce Brianna Oxley. She is a local middle school teacher at Roosevelt, where civics is her passion, and she enjoys sharing that information with school-age children and now with people of all ages. So without further ado, Brianna.
Welcome. Thank you guys all for coming, and thanks for bearing with our technical difficulties. I might still continue to point this way and come back. So I'll still kind of flip through this, but afterwards, if you want to take pictures, if you want to come up and like see it closer, that's totally okay. And a lot of the stuff I have, I'll be sending you to websites, and you can get the same information on there too. And then we had also talked about anyone that wants this sent to them, we'll pass around a notebook. If you just want to put your email in that, I can send this to you too. It's not secret, private information. Everyone needs to know and see these things. So, yeah, so like Karen said, I am in my 5th year of teaching. I taught for 3 years at a high school in Dubuque, and then 2 years here in the Cedar Rapids in middle schools. I have a degree in history with 10 endorsements, psych, soc, econ, U.S., world, and so on for history and kind of social science related things too. So I love government, civics, and where my passion lies is not so much in party politics, but in just educating everyone. And so after the last few elections, I think some people that had passions for government did some soul searching, and some people decided to run for office. Some people decided to get involved in all sorts of levels. I decided that we have a giant gap in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, the country, for this kind of civic education, not the party politics, not the stuff you hear on the news and the stories, but getting back to like a safe place where, like you were in class, could ask those questions. And so that's what this is. I promise you, if you ask me a question, it's not it's not something I haven't heard from a 13-year-old in class. Their minds go and they connect, and we debunk a lot of things they hear on Instagram and Facebook. And so it's good to ask. I mean, so they're starting to see that maybe not everything they see is truthful out there. So don't be afraid at any time to stop and ask a question, contribute another source if you're like, oh yeah, I have something that works great with that. Or afterwards, I'm definitely available to talk until the forum starts upstairs as well too. So very open, just kind of feel free to shout out whatever you need. Okay. So we're going to start with the bigger picture and kind of funnel back to state and then all the way back to more Cedar Rapids, Lynn County area things. So kind of our quick review of the federal government. We're going to talk specifically more about the legislative branch and our representatives and contacting them and maintaining those relationships too. So in our U.S. Congress, we have the House of Representatives and the Senate. The House of Representatives is based on population, and so there's 435 members, and then you'll hear some things with that number when it connects to the Electoral College. When we vote for a president, different states have electoral numbers based on population. It was kind of a compromise we made, actually the great compromise, back early on in our nation's history. Then our second group we have are senators. And so there's 2 from every state, so just an even 100. Together, those make up the U.S. Congress. Okay, and we have the same kind of setup for the state as well, too. With our federal government, last night was an eventful night. The government did officially shut down at midnight, East Coast time. I still go to school on Monday, so everyone's still gonna go to school still. So that's something you'll be seeing in the news a lot, and that's from this group right here. Okay, so that's where this is coming from. Right now, the Republicans hold the majority in the House and the Senate, and then the presidency too. So that's kind of a straight ticket for a party thing too. So just in case you start hearing about the majority, Republicans, and so on from there. And last thing with this too is they have year-round positions, so they are in Washington D.C. a majority of the time, and when they come back for breaks, it's meant for them to go back to their states, talk to constituents, that's all of you guys, and just catch up on things going in their home state too. So that's a big one. This is the map for Iowa currently. So we have 4 House districts. So this is the federal level, 4 House districts. We lost one a few years ago, the last census. We used to have 5 in Iowa, and our population went down, and so we went down to 4. Coming up in 2020 will be the next U.S. Census. So the U.S. Census Bureau will send out packets of information to all households. I encourage you to fill that out right away and then send it back. That will probably start by about the end of this year, maybe fall, winter of this year. So by 2020, they have the information, and then they're able to adjust electoral college and these districts as well too. So fingers crossed, we could see Iowa's go back up. And it's kind of like energy. It's not destroyed or created. It's just changed in different forms. So I think I read a year or 2 ago, they think Texas could lose one. There was another southern state too, and I think California might lose one. So that can all change very quickly. But I just heard a report about a year or so ago as they were projecting for this. So then states that gain will get those extra ones and kind of go from there. If you just simply Google Iowa, like federal House districts, and something to that effect, you'll find this map too. Since this is more of a Linn County event, I'm going to kind of talk more specifically about Linn County, and we are District 1 right here. So we go all the way up to the top of the state. And so we have an election coming up for this fall with that too. Rod Blum is our current representative, and so he's got an office here in Cedar Rapids, just a few blocks over. I lived in Dubuque for a long time and went to college there, and he's got one up there too. And then I think he's got 1 or 2 others. So just know that's our area. And there is no Senate map because our 2 senators represent the whole state. So it's just the whole state is their district. So these familiar faces are your current representatives, except for this one. This was from a presentation I did last week, and so I had to have Dave Loebsack on there. But we have Joni Ernst and Chuck Grassley are our 2 senators from Iowa. And then this would be a picture of Rod Blum, since he's our House person. This is kind of a point where I like to stop. And I know this isn't the easiest to see, but if you are not sure who your legislator is, I encourage you to take out your phone right now. I won't be offended. Like there's gonna be a lot of stuff that you can do on your phone. I encourage you to go on your phone right now and go to house.gov/representatives, or basically if you just type into a search engine, find my representative, something will come up. There's so many of them. And if after this you want to take a picture of this to do it during the forum, or if you want me to help you right after so you know who upstairs is your representative, I can definitely do that too. But I encourage you, like phones come out all the time in my classroom, so not a battle I'm going to pick. So feel free to look that up as you start to see who more of your local ones are as well. Okay. So since we are looking at more of our local legislators today, and oftentimes that's where you can have the most impact and you can have kind of the most one-on-one conversations, because they represent less and less people, and so you're more likely to kind of get their attention or get them as an audience for discussions too. So looking at our state government, we have that bicameral legislature, so that means 2. So we have the House and then we have the Senate, and that's our Iowa General Assembly. They just started, about 2 weeks ago, just about 2 weeks ago with the new session for this year. They are in office, or I should say in session, from January to May-ish, maybe a week into June. Sometimes it depends on how much they get through, what else is coming up before they break. And then the rest of that time, they're usually going back to some sort of full-time job, or they may own a business or have other things too. So just keep that in mind as we're chatting. We have 50 senators in the state of Iowa and 100 House of Representatives, so our reps there. And each senator has 2 House districts in their district. I'll show you the map in a second. I can definitely help you find that too. Sometimes I have to go back and look. I get too many numbers in my head and I forget which district I'm in some days. So that's a big one too. And just understanding that they're in session about half of the year, maybe just a tad bit less too. So here are the 2 maps. On this side, because there's more districts, you can tell that's the House map because there's more of them. And then this is the Senate map here. Okay, so if you go on one of those Find Your Legislator websites, it's going to give you these numbers. Let's see, I'm precinct 35 and I am in district, let's see, House district 66 and Senate district, I'm not gonna be able to think of the number. I just call it Senate District Rob Hogue. It just makes it easier in my mind right now. So don't be afraid if you don't have like your number memorized. Like there are plenty of places to find it. It's not, you know, it's not as important as your social security number. So have that memorized, but these help too. So this is just kind of a page about qualifications, and so it just goes through some stuff that's outlined in the state constitution about the age you can run, just some other kind of background info. But most people, I should say this is not true anymore. Every semester I have to update my notes and go back in because things change all the time. And so my speech used to be, people are surprised that really age, where you live, and being sometimes a registered member of a party are some of the qualifications to run. There really is not, by law, anything for your background, your job, your profession, really much like that for the state and the federal area. I think we know now that that's a little bit more true with people who are looking to run, and there are a variety of backgrounds too, and people looking to run for upcoming elections. So know that they don't have to follow, or they're not breaking any specific guidelines. An interesting one, I do this presentation in a variety of ways, and so one that's recently gotten added is this boards of commission. I'll spend a brief minute talking about this, but I really encourage you, if you are someone after the last few elections that wants to get more involved, not quite ready to run for office, but wants to do more than just, you know, go to events, I encourage you to really take a look at this. So in Iowa, on the website, there are about 180 boards and commissions you can serve on, and it's openup.iowa.gov. Otherwise, once again, type it in a search engine, it will come up. And there's all sorts of areas, so I'll just read a few from here. Agriculture Development Board, Armory Board, Arts Council, Autism Council, Athletic Training, Banking Council, Behavioral Science Board, and a ton more. If you're kind of ready for something that's like kind of in the next level, I encourage you to look at this. If you have a passion and knowledge base for a topic, don't worry about the rest. The people on these boards will tell you protocol, when meetings are, you know, more official things. So I really encourage you to look at this if you're interested in getting more involved.
What was the website?
Openup.iowa.gov. And for our local government, because we're going to really dive into it right now and look up some other things, all politics is local. Depending on your city and your area you're from, it's going to look different. Some cities and towns have the same format, and some have a variety. You may have heard of positions like a mayor, city council. What else we got? We have city managers, and then you get into county government with county supervisors and auditors and other positions like that too. This is where you can have the most impact and the most change in what's going on in your city or town. Even if you aren't interested in running for these positions, talking to these people, letting them know how you're feeling about issues in your area is huge. I really encourage you, since we're probably mostly Lynn County in here, to go to the Lynn County website. Just type in like Lynn County Auditor's Office or like Lynn County website. That's a website I've gotten much more familiar with over the last year, and I kind of get lost in it some days. There's all sorts of directions you can go to, from basic voting information, basic election information, to learning more about city councils, mayors, the county supervisors, county auditor, and upstairs, I don't think we have any down here, we have these like wonderful like 4-panel pamphlets, and that will give you all of those elected officials and their contact information. So as we talk about this, keep that in mind. We'll be handing that to you guys, and you can see more of what your city has in that area. Okay. So now that we kind of talked about structure, let's talk about that relationship that maybe not you're looking to build for it, but hopefully this will make you feel more comfortable. So in talking about this, we'll kind of take it in 3 steps. How to first connect with them. What platforms are they on? How can you find them? Taking a second to think about how you can reach the people that represent you. Then meeting them. That can be a very scary thing. That can be, something you may or may not have done before. But this will make you feel better that they are just people living in your area and care about what's going on. And then finally, that follow-up or maintaining that relationship. It can be as big or as small as you want to as well. Okay. So this is another one. I highly encourage you, if you have a smart device or some type of device, or just want to jot these ideas down to go home later and do, this is a big one. I spent a lot of time doing this in 2015 into 2016. One of the best ways, or like the best first steps to connect with your representatives, is social media, email, and websites. So you have to kind of think about what is best for you. Is it Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, email, going to their website? Maybe it is phone calls, letters. We'll get into that in a second. For me, Facebook is kind of like my #1 social media. Emails is my #2, and then going to their website is my #3. A lot of people go to Twitter, or they'll use other places too. So I highly encourage you, if you know your representative or just like a representative, go on your phones right now, just type their name into Facebook. Go into a search engine, type in Rob Hogue, Cedar Rapids, or Lynn County. Their websites will come up. A cool feature that I really got into in 2015 is signing up for alerts. And so when you go to their websites, often you can type in your email and get up-to-date information on events, where they're going to be. Maybe they'll just send events about what's going on in the legislature. So that's a very cool feature. In 2015 into 2016, I signed up for every single presidential candidate of any party. Yep, and so, because I always encourage my students, we do a kind of a political ideology inventory, and then this is literally what I have them do for almost a whole class period. And they'll sign up for them, and they'll keep getting them, and sometimes you get free stickers. That may sway my vote, no. And so I started telling this story about 2 or 3 weeks ago, because I was going through email, and I had one from Rand Paul. It's like, what's Rand Paul doing in my inbox? It's because I had signed up during the presidential election year right before, and that they're still sending stuff out for things they're doing now. So kind of a cool thing to keep in mind. I highly, highly encourage you to go sign up for those things. And do it with not only your local ones, but do it with the federal level too, with Joni and Chuck and Rod Blum. Even you can get into president, or like I like to follow secretaries. like Secretary of Education, Secretary of Defense. I like the Health and Human Service one too. So that's, I mean, you'll kind of just get lost in adding people, and Facebook likes to recommend more, and pretty soon you're friends with everyone in elected office in Iowa. So. So this one here, if you're like, well, the technology, the social media, that's not really my platform, then turn your attention to more of the email or the phone call piece. And even writing a letter too. This is kind of a good outline if you're looking for somewhere to get started after you say hi. This is kind of a nice outline that'll take you through some points to make. If you are someone that knows you want to talk to Ken Reiser about streets and sidewalks, then this is kind of a format to address the person and then get into your specific topic. And so I highly encourage you, depending on what you want to talk about, start with a story, kind of a more personal story, or something that kind of, you know, paints your picture of what you're getting at. Like for me, my representatives, so I live in one district, but Roosevelt is in a different district for city council, for House and Senate. So I plan on talking to, with our session coming up, the representatives of Roosevelt about public transportation and our sidewalks. Oftentimes we have kids who can't get to where they need to after practices because it's too late. Buses have stopped running. There's not sidewalks for them to even get home. And so that's one that I'm going to follow this format for, telling the story first about the students I witnessed firsthand, you know, not being able to get to where they need to. And then I'm going to pull in facts. What are those facts? What are those numbers? That's more kind of a tangible, we can do something about facts.
Is that one off Iowa.gov site?
Nope, not for this one. This is a thoughtcco.com writing effectiveness letter. And so once again, if anyone wants this, at the end, I'll kind of just have this here and you can take a picture of my screen, or we can send this to you as well. So yeah, this is another site to kind of help organize your thoughts for a letter or email too. Yeah. So, you know, anything you start is going to be good. Just, you know, sending something is already like a huge first step. Deciding you even want to send something is a good first step, okay? Any step is a good first step. This can be intimidating. This can be kind of a little nerve-wracking. And once you start, you'll find it gets a little bit easier every time. And here's the big thing with this too. For sure at the federal level, so with Joni Ernst, Chuck Grassley, and kind of some other people, their staffers are going to look at this the most. Elected officials for Congress, so at the state or the federal level, have staffers, and they come in a variety of ways. Sometimes kids in high school will go do a semester. Sometimes it's kids in college who will do a semester or just some downtime, or it's recent college grads too. Now, there definitely can be others besides that, but a lot of times those are kind of some of those first stepping stones. And so in looking at that, just remember, if you send a letter, Rod Blum might not read it. It might be a staffer reading it and going through it. But then they're going to categorize it. So mine would be education. They'll open up the education folder if it's an email or if it's a letter, or they'll print it off and then put the letter in the education folder. So later, if there's a bill that comes up, if there's a committee that's working on some of these things, you take the whole letter of education out, the whole folder, and then they would hand it to Rod Blum, Joni Ernst, whoever it is, and then they'll start going through and seeing, oh, so my constituents are saying this about education or that about sidewalks, and so on from there. So you may not get a very personal response back right away. Don't be offended. Don't be discouraged. It's kind of the way the system works right now. I feel like if you are on Facebook at all or some news stories, you see more people posting their letters back from like Joni Ernst or Chuck Grassley, Rod Blum, Dave Loebsack, whoever, and talking about how it's not maybe personal, it's kind of just a generic thanks for writing and reaching out type of thing. But when you start to think about the time allotment and how many people they represent, at some point we gotta, kind of fast track things and get stuff going. So I'm not saying don't write it, I'm not saying it's not important, but keep that in mind with this one you do too. So this is kind of just the next steps, but we kind of talked about this. Make the list of what you want to talk about. Have that plan for how you want to send it via social media, email, letter, phone call, and then just getting to do it. This is one of the big ones I want to talk about because this is a great way to get their ear, kind of have that face-to-face interaction, and a lot of times that's more effective, or you're able to kind of voice what you want to say better and feel a little bit better that you were able to have a conversation that was more personalized about your topic. So in-person meetings, it is easier the more local you get because they're often around the area they represent, and they have maybe less constituents than covering the whole state of Iowa or a whole district in Iowa. And so you'll often see them at more events. So I just want to kind of read some of these that have been around. And so in looking at in-person events, fundraisers are a big one. So if you see that on the news, on social media, they'll have fundraisers, and going to those, and a lot of times you don't have to donate. You can go and simply talk to them. Usually the invites will say something about that, so that might be what you want to go to. Galas in the area, like I know the Art Museum does one. I believe the African American Museum had another, and so those can be good events too. This is one that I've learned more about. I live right next to the Nubo building, and I often find early Saturday mornings that a race is going on outside my window when I wonder why people are cheering, and maybe they want me to wake up and start your day. So running races is actually a pretty good way to meet some of your representatives. My city council representative is Dale Todd, and he does a ton of races. And so, I need to tell him someday, hey, stop outside, I'll wave to you from my porch, and that can be our conversation. So don't be afraid to reach out for even, some of those fun or kind of silly events too. They're there, and they want to hear from all types of people that they represent. Local meetings. This is getting a little bit more into party politics, but in counties, they often, just like we have the Lynn County League of Women Voters, there's often a Lynn County Republican Party and their group that meets, or the Lynn County Democrats. I haven't heard of one in Lynn County, but I know Dubuque County has a Dubuque County Libertarian meeting and party as well too that meets often. So all types of parties can get these things together. I really encourage you, if you like one of the parties and want to just get more involved by being there and listening and starting to see some more representatives, once again, go on Facebook, websites, other social media, and find their contact information too. I know if you type in Lynn County Republicans, Lynn County Democrats, you'll find those groups right away too. If you have a special interest, obviously my default is to keep going to education. So, this is a whole variety of things, but there's special interest groups for education that I have joined over the last year or two. And so you can often, like I was giving this presentation to a group at the University of Iowa, Hospitals and Clinics for the Children's portion. And so I was giving them some things to Google. And if you just really type it in, so for me, maybe I would put Iowa education or like Iowa teachers groups, and you'd be amazed at like what will still come up. Google, Bing, they are very wonderful things above my understanding of those algorithms, but they really will link you to a lot of those groups. So if you know there's an issue you really care about, type it into a search engine, start connecting with those people too. Maybe that's how you want to get involved. Maybe it's not always with your representatives or elected officials. Maybe it's just groups and people who care about the same issue you do. That's still, getting active, learning more, and being a part of your community. Setting up a meeting. This is a good one too. If you're ready for that step, if you want to have that face-to-face, getting a quick coffee. Something at the library. So if, let's say maybe there's an issue I care a lot about at the public library, maybe I'll have them meet me there and we can talk about it while we're there. Okay, so thinking of those locations as well. This is just kind of the not in-person part, the email, social media, letters, phone calls. And the big thing I stress a lot is keep at it. Be persistent. When you call, a staffer is probably going to answer. Write down what you have to say and then pass it on. It'll make it into that folder. Keep at it. You'll get more comfortable. You'll get more confident, and maybe you'll start looking at some of those in-person ones. Okay, that's a big one too. Okay, so I want to stay on this one for a minute because I got a few other things I want to bring up. I really encourage you, as we're kind of sitting here right now, if you want to write it down. I'm a big Google Calendar person, and so I'll put events in there with my grocery list or things like that. So I really encourage you right now, after hearing about some of these things and topics or action steps that are kind of more speaking your language, I would put that into your calendar right now. After hearing this, what's your next step? Do you want to look up who your representative is? That's a step. That definitely counts. Do you want to write them a letter and kind of just make your voice heard? Do you want to set up a one-on-one? What's your next action step? I literally have mine right here. So I finally got these this week. My kind of new action plan is sending postcards. So that's what I literally just bought these 2 days ago. And so this was my next action step, that I wanted to write all of my representatives and a few others I know, just a nice postcard. Someone said this at a conference I was at in the fall, and it really stuck with me. Yes, you want to make your voice heard. You want to bring issues up to your representatives, but just like anyone else in your life or that you meet, you want to thank them too. And so with some, negative political energy we have at some points in our year, I wanted to send some positive ones. So all the notes I'm sending are thanking them for their time. I know a couple specific ones have done things for education, so I'll mention that. But I just want to write a positive one, thanks for being my representative. It's been great to see what you're doing for our area, our community, and I just want to encourage you to keep up the good work during this legislative session. I mean, it can be literally as simple as that. And I knew it was going to be on a postcard, so people can read it there, but this was my action step that I wanted. So whatever matches kind of where you're at, I really encourage you to take that step too. Yeah.
I know you probably printed those from your computer.
My postcards?
Yeah.
I live right next to Raygun, and so I think these were maybe $1 over there, and I just got them there.
That's what I wanted to ask.
Yep.
Yeah, because
That's a good deal.
it's just
Yeah.
nice to pick up something that
Yeah.
looks.
I mean, if we really want to,
attention, maybe.
I made sure they were all Cedar Rapids ones, because that's who I'm writing to.
Oh, okay.
Keep your friends close and your crunch berries closer. So I thought, I kind of wanted them to just be some fun, ones going around, just a cool thing to hang. Yeah.
I love those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you're kind of looking for something personal, or, maybe if you're writing a letter or an email including a picture or things like that. And actually, I did want to say that too. If you do meet with any of them in person and you're talking about something specific, I would almost have it printed or written out as well and give them a copy. Kind of leave them with that as well too. It's got your contact info on it. Just kind of a reminder of all the points and facts you made with them too, because they get busy. We all get busy. And yes, we kind of hold them to that different standard. They're being elected, they're representing all these people. But be persistent and, give them those opportunities to be successful too by continuing to follow up with them, giving them more kind of notes or facts or things like that as well too. Another one that I usually talk about with this too is kind of news sources and how to plug that into here too. Another thing I have my students do is get on their Facebook or Twitter or whatever they like and add news sources as well. Just to follow them on social media, get notifications from them. I know sometimes we're kind of overwhelmed with that, but I encourage you to make it one you like. I know we have some NPR fans in the room, some IPR fans, our Iowa Public Radio, National Public Radio. Those ones are great to add. Then we have, the more national ones, NBC, ABC, Fox, then we get to newspapers, Huffington Post, New York. I mean, we could go on for days. So one I also actually added, I need to look at, I just want to make sure I get this right. So especially if we're kind of all more Lynn County area, I just added, like KCRG has an app. I think KJN just got one too. And there's a Cedar Rapids app. And so that's on there too. So those are just even more ways to stay connected, not even necessarily with your representatives, but what's going on in the area too. And those can be things and points you bring up as well. But I think that's kind of a nice way to stay up to date and get some positive notes as well too, positive things that are going on in the area. If you drive a lot, or if while you're working you like to listen to things, I recommend podcasts. There are a lot of different political ones, and sometimes you're just surprised you'll be listening to a podcast and, a politician comes on or an elected official or someone, serving in some department comes on too. And so you get kind of a nice variety of things going on. So if there's an issue you care about, if there's a party you want to be connected to, if there's just like a news or TV personality you want to be connected to, I encourage you to look at podcasts and download those. And that's kind of another way to stay connected just beyond the representative piece too. Okay, I know I'll think of some more as we continue to talk, but I kind of want to pause, let it soak in, and start with some questions. Mm-hmm.
I have a grandson, a senior, and he's really opened my eyes a lot with political studies. One is John Oliver. Mm-hmm. Yep. And Bill Nye.
Bill Nye, he's back in it. He is back in it. If you remember Bill Nye, the science guy, he is back to making some as well, and he's taking some big stances on different environmental issues. I also teach science, and so it connects to some of those as well too. Yeah. So any of those personalities, share them with family and friends too. See how far you can get connected with these people too, and they're great resources. I ask my kids some days, what is the latest that you're seeing? What else should I be doing on social media to stay connected? And often they're so in tune with that. They're great resources.
Well, I have a question that because of the John Oliver, which is so informational, it's crazy. Is there like some way kids can gather in numbers? Not to follow Democrat or Republican or Libertarian, because I think that's old school, and I think that will be by the wayside at some time in the future. But for kids to be able to band together for just knowledge and direction for the Are there groups like that then to join?
So that is a passion of mine that I'm hoping to connect with. So in the fall, for Cedar Rapids specifically, I had all of the mayoral candidates. We had 8 of them come in, and we did a forum similar to what you're going to see. It was a speed dating round, and it was actually pretty cool, and a bunch of people here were volunteers there, and it was awesome. We couldn't have done it without them. And then my students campaigned across the whole school for the candidate they liked, and then we had an election day. So I think, if we give kids and students this knowledge, they're ready for it. I mean, they still talk about it. They went home and talked about it with their parents, and then the knowledge continues to spread. So in terms of groups, that's also kind of another gap, if you want to call it, that I've seen as well too. So with the league, we've had this discussion for a few months now about starting more of like a youth chapter or, student group or things like that too. to with, being a nonpartisan. And it is just, it's the knowledge. It's the, looking at how the system works and what's out there. We've looked into that. So at the moment, without just thinking, like some of the high schools have, I don't remember the official name, but it's a Democrat club and a Republican club. And so that those are more party specific, but in just learning about things, I encourage them to look for those groups too. Google those groups on Facebook or other areas and attend their meetings. A girl that happens to be a basketball player of mine, I often see her show up at these events, and I'm pretty sure she's upstairs. And so just having them, go with their parents or aunts or grandparents or whoever in their family, invite them along. This is one of those things, we shouldn't keep it a secret. We shouldn't try to, hide it behind a curtain. Talking about it, showing everyone kind of the whole picture, I think just helps more.
If you want to learn more about certain issues, and I guess I'm going to speak more on the federal level, the United Nations Association has a local chapter. They're going to, of course, focus more on foreign policy issues. They have a discussion series called The Great Decisions. I'm actually part of the local chapter, the UNA, the United Nations Association, and so forth. And then for a minute, speaking about domestic issues, not foreign policy issues, there is the National Issues Forum. You can Google it, find out. I don't think there's a local chapter. There was a local chapter back in the Chicago area when I lived there. It doesn't need to be a big city. You can have a local chapter anywhere. You can start it and so forth. And I bet if you did a little bit of publicity, you could get other people interested in joining you. These are just sitting down, discussing certain issues, probably in a book that's already pre-printed, and it explains the issue pretty much in depth. It's supposedly nonpartisan and so forth. Then real quick, one or two other things. If you're very conscious of the issue of the national debt, there's two organizations I know of, the Concord Coalition and the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. You can get on either one of those websites. It will give you more information than you would ask for. Again, it is nonpartisan, and I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, and that's what's important about these things too. We just share. I don't have all the answers. I don't have all of the connections and names out there too. And so by coming to things like this, we start to share more and hear more about what, will pertain to you as well. What other questions? Yeah.
I'm always interested in who's contributing to political campaigns, and the state requires that all political candidates file financial declarations. I think maybe one was coming up this past
Was last night, yep.
But at any rate, just even in local races, if you look at, a couple of years ago, a couple of city council candidates received huge contributions from local unions. Or when Ron Corbett was running for mayor the first time, he received huge contributions from people in Des Moines. And so, you ask yourself, well, what interests do people in Des Moines have in Cedar Rapids mayor? So it's a good way to kind of see who's interested in what races and how much they're interested.
Yeah, and this is a good topic we talk about in class with PACs, Political Action Committees, PACs, and who they donate to. That'll often come from corporations or unions, or there's some other groups too, and that can play a piece. If you have, a certain group donate to a candidate, then we hear stories often, does that candidate owe the group? Are they going to favor them? This is a reality of the world we live in. We're not going to pretend that it doesn't happen, but we need to talk about it, keep it in mind. There's a group called Wolf Pack, PAC, that's looking to get more money out of races and making it more focused on the candidate, not necessarily what they can do with the money they raise. So that's a group I encourage you to look at if that's a passion of yours too. PBS, I gotta think of his name, they have kind of a section of part of their website dedicated to talking about examples of this. And I think it's PBS Moyer, M-O-Y-E-R, like money series or campaign contributions, something like that. But if you type in PBS Moyer money, it'll come up there. So that's a cool one I lead my kids through as well. In talking about that same one, another kind of cool resource I learned a lot about is Park Avenue, the power, wealth, and something else of America. And it looks at Park Avenue in New York and how we have some of the top 10% and the bottom 10% living on this one avenue, and kind of breaks down some of the politicians piece, the Wall Street piece. What does that other population look like? What's the makeup of that? And that's a cool kind of knowledge base too, just to start getting aware of these issues and getting yourself familiar with that too. Because that's a big, big thing, I believe, that the more you know, the more you can make an informed decision. I think as we've been getting through some elections, we have, people choosing not to participate or vote, which, you totally can too. Some who are making decisions, like uninformed decisions, because we don't have resources out there, or some people that are making their decision based off things maybe they're not comfortable with. So the more we talk about this and the more options we have, the more you can make informed choices. And so that's kind of what this is for too, asking those questions. Maybe people weren't aware of contributions to political groups. Getting those on your radar and asking questions. Being a citizen in America, being a member of this society, these are kind of, your rights and, what you can do in participating in government too. Any other questions? Okay, I know a few people want to take some pictures, sign up in the notebook, to get this PowerPoint.